Hello, this is Dr. Ted D'Amico, and today we will be discussing the eighth media and marketing research fallacy, which is that brand profiles developed on the basis of use, consumption, and money spent produce similar results. When brand or category profiles are developed, it is generally assumed that there's a fairly high correspondence between user and volume data. Therefore, if members of a segment, for example, women 18 to 24, use a category or brand at a disproportionately high rate, it is generally assumed that segment members consume the category or brand at a disproportionately high rate. Such an assumption is belied, however, by the fact that in many instances a segment's user index is a relatively poor predictor of a segment's consumption or volume index. That is, if two segments have the same incidence of using a given brand or category, it doesn't necessarily follow that the segments consume the brand or category at the same rate. Consequently, whenever possible, brand profiles should be developed and media vehicles should be selected based on volumetric data. Failure to do so can lead to serious errors in targeting and media selection. It should be noted that the greatest disparity between user and volume indices occurs when the incidence level for a brand or category is high. For example, if the incidence of category usage is 95%, most of the user indices will cluster around 100, and the maximum user index a segment can achieve is only 105. Fortunately, even when category incidence is high, volumetric indices generally show a much greater dispersion than user indices. Consequently, when volumetric data are used, there is a much greater likelihood of finding segment differences. Two analyses are provided to illustrate the lack of correspondence between user and volume data. The first analysis is based on data for a high incidence household product category, and the incidence in this category was 95%. The second analysis is based on data from a moderate incidence beverage category. In this case, the incidence level was 67%. In both analyses, 243 demographic segments were analyzed with respect to their user and volume indices. The results of the two analyses clearly reveal that user indices have a limited or restricted range problem, which limits the ability to discriminate among segments. In the high incidence household product category, user indices range from a low of 95 to a high of 102, which is a range of only 7. In contrast, in this same category, the volume indices range from a low of 62 to a high of 143, and the total range of 81. In the moderate incidence beverage category, user indices range from a low of 40 to a high of 182 for a total range of 142. In contrast, in the same category, the volume indices range from a low of 21 to a high of 230, and the total range was 209. Moreover, when user indices were used to predict volume indices, only 13% of the variance was explained in the household product category, and 55% of the variance was explained in the beverage category. The results of these two analyses clearly show that indices based on use have a restricted range problem, and they do not necessarily reflect a segment's consumption rate. Consequently, whenever possible, volume data should be used when addressing media and marketing issues.